Hi, I'm Vicki Stark. I'm the author of Runaway Husbands, and tonight we have a very special Facebook Live Q&A. I'm going to be answering a question that somebody asked me last week about covert narcissism. Now, I've been working with women for the past 10 years about wife abandonment syndrome and their husbands leaving. But the topic of covert narcissism has really only come up recently, like in the past year or so, where women have started to ask me, is it possible that my husband is a covert narcissist? So I've done a bit of research on it, and tonight I want to share with you different thoughts about, is it possible that your husband is a covert narcissist? Now, when we say the word narcissist, we typically think of somebody who's a braggart, who's annoying, who always thinks they're right, who always has to be, have everything focused on themselves, who seems to be incapable of sharing with anybody else. And that's sort of a very more classical picture of what how a narcissist might look to you. But this new category of narcissist, which is called covert narcissist, or covert passive-aggressive narcissist, is really interesting, and I think it really perhaps will describe for you what happened to you. Because in so many instances with the women that with whom I've worked, they tell me that their husband was a sweetheart, that he was the pillar of the community, that he was a pastor or a teacher, a beloved teacher, or the beloved soccer coach, or somebody who people looked at him and admired him. And then at the end of the relationship, he seemed to completely alter that personality and become so cold and so mean. And it leaves the wives thinking, what happened? Like, how did this happen? But when we start learning about covert narcissism, we realize that that's a classic picture, that's a classic definition of how a covert narcissist operates, which is that he's the kind of person who draws you into his confidence, typically after love bombing you. You know, when you first meet that he's going to be, and this certainly happened to me, that you fall so madly in love, and he tells you how spectacular you are and how important you are to him, and he hits all the right notes. He says all the things that make you feel so great. Now, of course, this doesn't happen in every case, but in a lot of cases. And in a sense, it sort of secures you in that relationship and gives you that mental picture that this is the kind of man he is. He's so loving, he's so giving, he goes above and beyond in order to show you how much he cares for you. So in this book that I have been reading, The Covert Passive-Aggressive Narcissist by Debbie Mirza, I've extracted little bits, that will sort of expand more on this picture of this kind of narcissist. She calls them CNs, covert narcissists. And she says, CNs are often chameleons who can become whoever they are around. They don't have a strong sense of self. They pick up what a person wants and they become that. Because of this, people are impressed with how well the CN can seem to relate to all types of people. Now, in Runaway Husbands, I write about how, often people ask me, how could my husband detach from me and now seem to be so madly in love with this other woman? And I write about how the husband seems to be like a parasite, and that when he's with you, he's so with you, he's so attached to you, and you really inform his whole life. But when he becomes distracted and he's finished with this relationship and he wants to move out to the next, he detaches and reattaches with the other woman, and then you have no meaning or value to him. And I think in what Debbie Mirza is saying here, that they're chameleons who can become whoever they're around. I think that explains a lot to a lot of women, because now they're with the other woman. In most cases, they're with the other woman, and she's the one who defines him. So he doesn't, and she says here, they don't have a strong sense of self. So it's not like he has his own character, his own personality that's consistent and stable from one relationship to the next. No, he takes on whatever he can withdraw from you. But then when he doesn't need you anymore, he doesn't have his own personality. He now attaches to somebody else and takes on her personality. So I thought this was really interesting. Another thing she says is, in the beginning, that men like this learn your vulnerabilities and insecurities. CNs make sure to build you up and compliment you in these areas. It can feel like they're part of your healing for whatever happened to you in the past and other hurts that you had. But they will later use what they learn about you to trigger you, manipulate you, control you, and wound you. It becomes the biggest betrayal you've ever felt. So you trust them so much and you let down your guard and you let them know everything about you. But then when he's leaving, he can use all of your insecurities and vulnerabilities against you, and he'll attack you with it. And this is also something that I've heard many, many times throughout the years. Then it's very interesting. She says that there are like 3 stages of relationships with these kinds of people, and that the initial stage is the love bombing, where they draw you in and make sure that you're holding on tight, and then comes the discard, where suddenly they're annoyed with you and everything you're doing is wrong, and they're pointing out everything and they're just not being very nice to you, and then it's the discard is at the end. And I forgot the name of the middle one, but it's something like they become disillusioned with you. And then finally at the end is the discard, where they totally turn on you and become so mean. And many of us, many, many women in our community have seen this. So she's talking about covert narcissists will do things that are unkind to you, but somehow you end up apologizing. They do the unkind thing to you and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, right? It's not uncommon to feel like things are your fault. They aren't doing anything wrong. You convince yourself. Thank you. Deborah De La Rose said the middle phase is called devaluation. So it's love bombing, devaluation. Thank you, Deborah. And the final stage is the discard. So she says here, when you're with a covert narcissist, you learn to ignore your gut feelings, your instincts, and over time believe the narcissist more than you believe yourself. So his words are so powerful, and even though you have certain feelings, you're not really attending to your feelings. You're really connecting with what he says and his definition of you. And that's why it's so destructive when these men leave and they put you down so viciously, because you're so used to honoring what he has to say and believing what he has to say and feeling as though he has the moral authority, or he has something over you where he's the one who's typically right. Okay, another aspect. First, you begin to realize the person you have loved and when you first begin to realize the person you have loved and fully loved you is a covert narcissist, it's so hard to accept, because you've seen them in such a different light for so long. And this we see all the time. You know, that for decades you've had this picture of this man in your mind as being this loving, caring, empathetic person. And so when he's no longer behaving that way, it's very hard to give up that default position that he's like that. It's a struggle for the brain to reconcile the man you thought existed with the one who is now treating you with such anger and hostility. This is called cognitive dissonance. That's the psychology term. Having 2 competing thoughts in your mind at the same time. And it's part of the confusing feelings you may be experiencing. It is both painful and exhausting. Yeah. And then finally, she's saying, a covert narcissist can appear to be a loving partner for a very long time. Their behavior often becomes more aggressive at the end of the relationship. They will still be covert with others, so that with other people, they'll still be the charming guy. But with you, you will see and experience more of the overt narcissistic traits coming to the surface. Their mask cracks when you, the survivor, begin trusting yourself. The stronger you become, the less they can control and manipulate you. And when this happens, they no longer need you. You are no longer supplying them. You're no longer supplying their emotional needs. This is when you feel their rage more than ever. And this is when their behavior turns aggressive, cruel, and shocking. So, again, bingo, that's exactly what so many of us have experienced. So I think that it's a very interesting concept and very explanatory to help us understand, why did he turn on me? Why did he become so mean? Why is he saying these cruel things? I'm remembering with my own husband that my birthday's in February, and he gave me a card that said, "You are my rock, you are my life." And then like 6 or 8 months later, he, had completely devalued me. So somebody's saying here, "Oh my God, this fits my ex to a T." And yeah, so, I think that perhaps it will help people. And if you want to do more research about covert passive aggressive narcissism, you can look it up on the internet. And for those of you who are interested in joining the Jump Up, which is coming in a couple of weeks, September 26th and 27th in 2020, come join us. And we're going to be talking about this and many other things to help you understand what happened to you, to help you understand why your husband has behaved the way he has, and how to get strong with the help of our sisterhood of fabulous women and move on. So that's us for tonight. Take care, be well, and I'll see you next week.